Hello and welcome to the Palmore Institute video lesson series. My name is Lowell and today we'll be looking at the TOEFL course. So let's begin. In this lesson we'll be looking specifically at the listening section. I'll provide you with an introduction to the listening section of the TOEFL. Our learning goals for this particular lesson involve familiarizing yourself with the format of the test. I'll also instruct you on how to navigate through the test and to introduce you to the different types of questions that are found in the listening section of the TOEFL test. Also, we will look at some basic test strategies for improving your score on the listening section. The purpose of the listening section of the TOEFL is to measure test takers' abilities to understand and analyze the information contained in university-level talks, lectures, and presentations, and also to understand conversations that might take place in an academic environment. For example, between a professor and a student, between a student and a university staff member, between two students, etc. As for the format of the listening section, the recent version of the TOEFL has changed a bit. So as of August 1st, 2019, when the latest or newest version of the TOEFL was released, the listening section will have 3 to 4 lectures with 6 questions each, 2 to 3 conversations with 5 questions each, and it will last for 41 to 57 minutes. And like the other sections on the TOEFL, the score scale is 0 out of 30, and the whole test has a maximum score of 120 points. Each question is worth 1 point, although some questions that require more than one answer may be worth 2 points. And you will hear each lecture and conversation only once. So make sure that you take notes while you are listening. And each lecture and conversation is illustrated by a picture or pictures on the computer screen so that you know who is speaking, how many people are speaking, and the context or situation in which they are speaking. However, the pictures are not really that important. The questions appear on the screen following each lecture and conversation. So when you're using the computer on the TOEFL test, here are some buttons that will enable you to navigate through the test quickly. One button is used to set the volume level. There's a timer button that will show you how long you have left to complete the test, or hide timer to hide the time remaining in the section. You also see a help question mark icon, and if you press that, it will help you with relevant information related to the topic. And you also will see the continue icon, and if you press on that, it will allow you to continue with the test once you've read the instructions. There are 2 more icons to be familiar with. The next icon that will move you forward to the next question, or the OK checkmark icon. And that will allow you to enter your chosen answer into the system and go to the next question or listening passage. Next, types of questions on the listening section. First of all, you have main idea questions. Those are usually some of the easier questions to answer. You have purpose questions, detail questions, 2 types of detail questions. We'll look at those in a later lesson. We have yes/no questions, and we have function questions, attitude questions, organization questions, content connection questions, and inference questions. And we'll look more deeply at those question types in a future lesson. For the lectures, you will hear 3 to 4 lectures. They will contain examples of the type of language that you might hear in a classroom or during a seminar at a college or university. In many cases, you'll hear a professor giving a talk on a subject, but you will not hear anyone else speaking. In some cases, however, there may be an element of interaction between the lecturer or professor and the students in his or her class. For example, a lecturer may ask one of his or her students a question, or one of the students may ask for clarification or ask a question of their own. Each lecture will usually be based on one of the four following academic areas. Could be physical sciences, for example, information technology, math, environmental studies, astronomy, etc. Could be social sciences, for example, media studies, education, economics, linguistics, etc. Could be life sciences, biology, biochemistry, etc. Or art, music, photography, modern literature, architecture. The lectures contain all the necessary information to answer the questions correctly. So no specialized background knowledge is required. However, I do think having some basic vocabulary and knowledge about general freshman or first year university lectures will help you to some extent. Each lecture is followed by 6 questions. And for the conversation and discussions, you'll hear 2 to 3 conversations or discussions. They're typical types of conversations that you might hear at a North American university. The conversations and discussions could be administrative conversations, for example, in a registrar's office. A student might be signing up for a class, or in a library, it could be a discussion with a librarian. Academic conversations, these might occur between a student and his or her professor, or between a student and a classmate, where they're talking about the topics of lectures or homework, etc. Or they could be social conversations with students discussing aspects of their life at university. The language is often more informal than that used in the lectures, with idioms and colloquialisms being a common feature. So having some knowledge of basic common slang could be helpful. Each conversation is followed by 5 questions, and typically the conversations often follow problem-solution format. They address a problem and they discuss possible solutions or answers to solving the problem. As with the lectures, you do not need to have any specialized background knowledge. The conversations contain all the necessary information to answer the questions correctly. Here are some general tips for preparing for the listening section. Make sure that you build your vocabulary and record new words by topic, for example, biology, chemistry, art, technology, etc., in a notebook or flashcards. Review these new words on a regular basis so that they become a part of your active vocabulary. Vocabulary is so important to tests like this. It's essential that you build your vocabulary. And try to develop your listening skills by listening to native English speakers. Could be from English language videos, audiobooks, and radio and television programs. For example, TED Talks, BBC, CNN, etc. These are all good ways of doing this. Tips for while you're taking the test. Focus on the lecture by asking yourself questions about the information the speaker is conveying. What is his or her main point or points? How does he or she feel about the topic, etc. Listen for new words or concepts that the lecture uses or introduces, as they may be related to a test question. And pay attention to the content of the lecture rather than the way it is being delivered, or by other potentially distracting elements such as the speaker's accent or his or her style of delivery. So focus on the content. Also, when you hear the speaker's opening remarks, try to anticipate what he or she will say in the lecture. Try not to be distracted by anything else that is going on around you in the test room while you're listening. You'll have a pair of headphones on, so hopefully you can focus on your listening. Most importantly, take notes. These should include the main points or issues and should not include peripheral information or unessential information or non-essential information. Practice note-taking, particularly focusing on using abbreviations and symbols. TED Talks are very useful for this, as you can check the scripts. You can watch a TED Talk, take notes, maybe read the transcripts in English to check how well your notes matched. And then you can next check the translations of the transcripts to see how accurate your note-taking was and your comprehension. For the homework, please choose 20 new words or phrases that you learned from each class in the textbook or from an academic vocabulary list, such as the one mentioned below, and write definitions, synonyms, antonyms, and example sentences. And please write a 300-word or more 4 to 5 paragraph essay and time yourself to 30 minutes. If your instructor hasn't assigned a topic, you can choose one from this list. After your first draft is returned to you, please make corrections and write a second draft. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And until next time.